Draw a line, clean, moving in one direction. This is how we imagine the history of ideas. Socrates to Augustine, Aquinas to Voltaire, Nietzsche, our contemporaries to us. A relay race of magnificent, once-in-a-lifetime genius, each generation handing something forward. Now tangle the line. The truth is messier and far more interesting. Philosophy doesn't march, it argues, doubles back, contradicts itself, and somehow keeps moving. Less like a river, more like a living organism, branching, dying in places, expanding in others. The earliest Greek thinkers looked outwards, at water, fire, the structure of the cosmos. Socrates looked inward. Before you can understand anything, he argued, you have to understand how you understand. So he walked into the forums of marketplaces and started asking people to define the words they used most confidently: courage, justice, and piety. The generals, the priests, the politicians, none of them could do it. Neither could Socrates. But he knew he couldn't, and they didn't. That gap between the appearance of knowledge and its reality is where philosophy truly began to flourish. From one man who wrote nothing, many incompatible traditions were born. Plato's world of perfect, eternal forms, the cynic's radical rejection of civilization, the skeptic's weaponized doubt. The line doesn't split cleanly, it explodes. Rome collapsing around him, a North African bishop named Augustine makes his own diagnosis. He had read the Greek philosophers, admired them, and found them insufficient. He knew what was good. He could argue for it brilliantly. He simply couldn't choose it. His will refused to cooperate with his intellect, and no amount of further reasoning fixed the problem. This wasn't a failure of reason, it was a diagnosis of its limit. Reason illuminates. It cannot move you. That question, why humans consistently fail to act on what they believe, didn't die with the medieval era. It resurfaced in Kant's moral philosophy, in Schopenhauer's metaphysics, and eventually in modern psychology. Augustine reached forward across 1,000 years. Voltaire is one of the Enlightenment's sharpest instruments. He didn't invent skepticism of authority or the case of reason governing public life, but he made those ideas dangerous, readable, impossible to ignore. Within a century, the philosophical argument that authority must justify itself to reason became the premise of the French and American revolutions. But the Enlightenment's triumph contained its own undoing. If reason had replaced God, Nietzsche said, reason itself is not neutral. It is a will in formal clothes. The death of God didn't liberate humanity from mythology. It left mythology standing with no one at the center. From that wreckage, existentialism, postmodernism, and a dozen other traditions built different structures. Now ask a question philosophy hasn't had long enough to answer. For the first time in history, something has encountered not a partial inheritance, filtered through biography, geography, once philosopher obsessions, but comprehensively the entire transcript of the conversation, every argument, every refutation, every synthesis held simultaneously. A large language model doesn't remember thinking about these problems, but it can hold Plato and Nietzsche in the same space. Trace how Augustine anticipates Kant. Notice the uncomfortable echoes across centuries. Is this convergence? Probably not resolution. These arguments remain open. The question Socrates died for has no final answer, but for the first time, the branching lines of Western thought are being held together by something that can respond to them all at once. The conversation has a new kind of participant. The line goes on.